Okay, so this video, just to be right up front with it, I want to be very straightforward, very powerful with this particular comment. This video is my assessment of the VP Harris versus past President Trump and how they were doing in the presidential debate when it comes to Social Security benefits. I'm going to make something incredibly clear so we don't waste any time with this commentary. Number one, Social Security benefits never really came up. It didn't come up in question form. It didn't come up in analytical structure assignment or figuring out what should be done with it, what the future is, the ailing trust funds, what are we going to do? None of that stuff came up, which points to me that the topics should be examined to see why those topics were brought up. Most of the topics that were brought up were more favorable to the Democrat side. I don't believe that is why VP Harris did so well during that entire back and forth. I think what happened was Donald Trump completely underestimated his opponent, did not prepare enough, basically, to go ahead and battle her with details and facts, etc. And as a result, she was throwing things at him. He was constantly on the defense. He never went on the attack. He was constantly explaining, which means he was losing. And as a result, he then also had the mediators constantly saying, well, that's not true. Well, that's not true. We looked this up and that's not true. I have seen, for some reason, a lot of people feeling very strongly about the whole cats and dogs thing, that they're not being eaten. I thought that was odd. I saw both sides were making fun of it, right? So, basically the right is making fun of it because it essentially represents, dogs and cats being stolen from people, and how dare they? And then the Democrat side is saying, nobody's eating any cats or dogs. So the reality of this is that you would have to be a complete idiot to not realize that different cultures coming to America eat cats and dogs. That's very common. Have any been eaten in that area? It would be impossible to say no, because somebody, I'm sure, did. Somebody grabbed a street cat, a street dog, or maybe even a pet. That happens. It's not uncommon in America. It's just something you don't think about, because it would be horrific to imagine these beautiful animals that we cherish and love, unlike, cows, which we eat all the time, or pigs that we eat all the time. It's just hard to imagine that somebody would actually eat those from a different culture, which, of course, many areas all over the world have different preferences for different animals. So don't get stuck in that whole mishiga between like the whole right and left on that, because that's distracting. That's a bunch of BS. Number one, do cultures eat those animals? Absolutely. Number two, have some been eaten? You can't say no. With absolute certainty, some of them got grabbed, whether they were owned by people or not. And remember, it only takes two people, whether they file a police report or not, to say 2 dogs, 2 cats, or a dog and a cat were taken, to make that whole thing true. So don't get into that. That's just a waste of time. Stay on focus. Social Security. So from my perspective, what happened, and I think what's so upsetting to me, is that they did not go into the trust funds. Retirement, Medicare, they're ending. And as a result, I think it is because, I can't prove this, somewhere along the line, somebody was given a heads up that they did not want Social Security to be brought up. Here's why. The Democrats have a plan that will never happen. And the Republicans have a plan that is horrible. And those two powers combined do not give you Captain Social Security Planet. You basically get stuck with nothing happens because nobody has a good idea. They want the rich to pay for Social Security benefits, those earning over $400,000. Here's the problem. They are not going to be able to successfully tax things that have unrealized gains, because they could have unrealized gains one year and then unrealized losses another year, and then they're not going to get that money back, which means you have just an unconstitutional taxation. And the problem with this whole theoretical hypothetical taxation situation is that if you get all the rich people combined, it will make the system last longer. But there's no politician, statistician, actuary, no numbers person or person who works in the program that will say to you that the rich people will indefinitely be able to keep Social Security benefits alive. They won't. There's not enough money there. Social Security benefits, if you look at like what we spend money on in this country, it's a lot of military gear, big ships. And basically, Social Security benefits mostly old people, retirement, elderly, over 62. What we are seeing in this nation is a design. It's a specific applied design defect, a specific applied design defect to go ahead and strangle out the use of the current model of Social Security benefits. Same thing happened with the military, with the retirement. They got rid of the regular retirement system and went to a, you donate this much, we'll donate this much, good luck. That's what's going to happen with Social Security benefits because politicians want the following items. Number one, they want more classes of individuals to work. Elderly people, that's a class. Immigrants, that's a class. They want more classes of individuals to work. Be surprised if you start seeing more and more individuals, younger age, going ahead and actually being required to work because of the culture of the program. Now, you know that politicians, their only job is to mechanically figure out how to manufacture an outcome, just like Hollywood movies, right? You're figuring out what's going to be in the movie so that you end up with this design, this outcome. Their main focus is to get as many disabled people, as many immigrants, as many retired people, as many widows, as many people getting child support and, basically, some sort of support for being an ex-spouse or this or that or whatever, alimony. Their job is to figure out how to get more of those people to actually go and work. And the reason for that is really simple. Because if you are working and paying more taxes, you get to go ahead and essentially feed more money into the trust funds, which they then get to borrow money against. The way it works is very simple, right? We all know the way it works, but let me go through it so some of the new people understand how it works, okay? When you work, all right, you got a shovel, you're working, somebody pays you payroll, right? 15% of that, a little bit more than that, goes basically to the federal government. It goes into a special account. That special account, and it's actually split up between a couple accounts, then can be borrowed against using what's called special bonds, like bonds and stocks. Except these bonds, the way bonds work is you buy a bond. A bond is a piece of paper or a digital piece of paper that basically you hold on to. And then when that time comes up, the bond matures, right? When the bond finally matures, then at that point, you are to be given money from the person who took your money to begin with. It's like a loan, right? From a company against money that you gave them. So instead of them loaning you money, you're loaning them money. Here's the deal. Your Social Security FICA taxes, in part, are converted into special bonds. The special bonds are then spent on whatever the F the government really wants to do. It's supposed to be limited to particular things, but realistically, at the end of the day, and the way these whole things are written, whatever the F they want to spend it on, okay? And as a result of that spending, they then, over time, have to go ahead and pay that bond back. Now, do they have to pay you back? Not directly. They have to pay the account back that they borrowed the money from once the bond matures at its mature date with all of the extra interest. Now, the USA, unfortunately, can't afford any of its interest. So when those bonds become due, they have to go ahead and print money or borrow money. Now, the US can't borrow more money because at this point we can't afford the interest. And the US can't go ahead and print more money because it devalues our reserve currency and lessens our standing and creates inflation, which just destroys our currency in the international setting. So what does that mean? It means that the politicians are afraid to talk about it because shit is literally going to hit the fan in 2033. Probably sooner, probably 2031, 2030, things like that. Because the main thing that they continuously calculate wrong is the fertility rate problem. All right, what is the fertility rate problem? The fertility rate problem is very simple. There are not enough people getting together to create children that are really good at making money. Little soldiers of society, civilian money-making corporate soldiers, okay? People that constantly work to get a paycheck. So what happened? Well, we're not having enough kids fast enough, and the kids that are being had are not in traditional enough, cultures or whatever that equate to your classic doctors, lawyers, accountants, whatever. But then the question becomes, why do we have so many lawyers? Now, we have fewer doctors because they're not getting paid shit because they're screwed over by the insurance companies. But why do we have so many lawyers? And yet, yada, yada. Here's the ironic thing. Some professional fields don't have enough people in them, right? So if you look at veterinarians, specialties in their specialist areas, not enough of them. If you look at lawyers doing personal injury, God, you can't walk a foot without hitting one with your toe. So the point here is this. You either have not enough or you have too many. But still, there's not enough people with traditional educations that are growing their education to do high-level earning tasks. Now, what do we end up with? We end up with a lot of individuals in the mid to lower income spectrum of earners, right? So the kids grow up, they're doing mid, lower, and they just never seem to make it past that middle income spot. Remember, America, and I mean, this is the reality of it. America was never supposed to be, over the past 50 years, a situation where you couldn't climb your way up, right? Go from low income to mid income to high income to, wealthy status, etc. That was the whole point of it. That was literally that was the American dream. The American dream was that. But what they've taught the average American now is that you, without this education or without a whole lot of money to go ahead and pump prime some idea, you'll never make it out of the spot that you're at. America has really interestingly changed the way that we perceive our purpose in this country. Our purpose used to be to have more for our family so that our family could achieve more in the next generation. But now we don't have that. And the worst part is the Social Security benefits are actually becoming a drag on the future of people. Why? Well, yeah, you get a check and you get health insurance, SSI Medicaid, SSDI, or retirement Medicare. That's good. That's really good. The health insurance is worth way more than the monthly check. But the problem is that when that monthly check is so small that it perpetually forces the person to a state of poverty, then what happens is that person has to expend whatever resources they had in order to survive repetitively going forward in the timeline of America. Nobody ever talks about that. We didn't hear that from Trump. We didn't hear that from Harris. And here's why. Trump and Harris, unfortunately, have no idea how the Social Security system works. Trump's probably very good at the tax system. He's probably gone through enough suits to know what's going on, right? Harris probably has an up on him when it comes to the healthcare system. Although, to be fair, I'm not really sure how knowledgeable she is in a lot of this stuff. I would not feel threatened going against her in a courtroom. The point is this, okay? Nor would I against Trump, but then Trump would pay for a bunch of top-notch attorneys to just outspend me with their war chest. So that's the game he would play. So the point is this, and I think this is what's upsetting me about it. And I understand this is more of a soapbox video that I'm standing on telling you, but what's upsetting me is that at the end of that, I see that Leanne, Walter, and Sweetie 2024, but what about Shadow? So here's the thing. Here's what's upsetting me about this. You have 70 million plus Americans that rely on this monthly check. And this monthly check exists because each category of recipients of Social Security benefits are a special legal class because they're more fragile. They're part of these fragile groups, fragile classes that we deem need to be protected more. So, for example, if you have an elderly person, they're more fragile. They can't work and earn more. And if somebody wants to go after them, they're going to win. They can't run away. They're not going to win in a fight. They're not going to win running away. Okay. Same thing for a disabled individual. They can't work anymore, right? Unless it's like a VA, 100%, permanent total as opposed to the TDIU. But remember, you still have the OIG factor to worry about with that. So what you run into is a situation where these special classes of individuals, disabled adult child, right? That's a special title of Social Security benefits. Widow's benefits, a special class of benefits for a person who is in a more fragile state. So the reality with this situation is, just to be fair, okay, is that, forget the cat and dog situation with what they're arguing about. Forget the little quibbles back and forth. One of the largest programs that the most special, fragile classifications of people exist within is the Social Security system. It is obnoxious, abhorrent, terrible. It is deep-seatedly unrealistic at this point, how we would end up with two presidential candidates who go head-to-head and don't discuss the actual implosion of the Social Security programs. Now, let me tell you what's going to actually happen so that there's no this thing or that thing or yada yada. Okay, let me go into this real quick. Okay, what will happen is the following: we are right now past the golden era of Social Security benefits, right? Which was basically 2000 to like 2012. Okay, we are now in the precursor to the dark ages. Things are shadowy. Things aren't looking good. Things are changing. It's not good. Commissioner Martin O'Malley is doing an amazing job. He does. One of the videos that we're going to be doing is specifically on statements that he's recently said. He's doing an amazing job. But the problem is the federal government is trying to strangle the Social Security system. And no matter which way you look at it, the Republicans are the main force of that. The Republicans are doing that. And I have Republicans that I like. I have Democrats that I like. But the Republicans, when it comes to not properly funding the Social Security Administration, that's on them. They want to reduce the budget. But the problem is this: the Social Security Administration is, to some degree, like humans in America having babies. They can just keep having them. Similar to that, the Social Security Administration has a lot of people that are becoming old and hitting 62. And a lot of people that are disabled, although you will notice they are significantly reducing the amount of adjudications where they find people favorable for disability benefits. So the thing is, these people, they're going to have them, and the government can't stop it. They can't stop people from getting old unless something ended up ending a lot of lives, of the elderly, with weakened immune systems, So the point is, if you have, for example, a large group of people constantly retiring, a group of people constantly filing for disability benefits, right? It's just this overflow, and they can't handle it, and they don't know what to do. Well, what do you have to do? You have to adjudicate them, whether they're disabled or not, whether they're 62 and older or not. You have to have an administration to do that. You have to have a lot of people who press the pay this person button. They don't have enough employees. It's the lowest it's been 25, 30 years. They can't get funding to hire enough new people. The funding that they receive is barely combating the high levels of inflation created by, you got it, very poor choices at the executive level in DC when it comes to fuel, treatment of farmers, transportation, and some of the tariffs. Okay. The last 4 years have been very rough, but there were choices about the economy that were just the wrong choice. And you know what the amazing thing is? Most Americans don't even think about that. They think about reproductive rights. They don't think about economy. And I get it, because that is close to home and it's specific in nature to the individual as opposed to the economy in general. But go back to my original doctrinal theory here, guys. Follow me on this one, because this is important. America has taught Americans, right, that your only way through going from here to here is to have a lucky business, to keep pushing that education and taking out those student loans, or basically getting lucky and marrying somebody that then places you into a higher spot, teaches you the ropes, whatever. Okay. Many Americans culturally do not know the steps to success. They don't. You cannot be super successful monetarily if you don't own the company or don't work for a massive major company where you're at the top. That's it. There's only two options. I mean, sure, you could win the lottery, but that's not traditional ways of basically getting rich. And the reality of you actually winning it extremely low. So the point here is, when you look at these two candidates, the Democrats want to go ahead and tax the rich to pay for the problem. It's not going to fix the problem. It's not even going to fix it for a long period. And they can't get it through anyways. They couldn't get it through committee. The Republicans want to go ahead and shoot the millennials in the back and every younger generation thereafter, basically making you have to retire later in life, having to take less money, etc. Horrible. Horrible idea. The reason it's a horrible idea is that the Republicans are not taking lessons from the religions that get them their greatest voting block. What does Christianity have? It has heaven. Heaven is a unique place. A lot of restrictions on heaven that a lot of people don't know about. But the bottom line is, heaven is the ultimate win. It's the ultimate, you did the game, you did a great job, you were kind, honest, good person, you helped others. Heaven, right? All needs and requirements are met. Beautiful existence. It's the end game. It's why somebody works hard to then play hard. That is the problem with Social Security benefits, in that it no longer covers you in a big, broad net that fulfills your needs. It's merely something that gives you a little bit more cash and requires of you basically a situation where you go ahead, just to be very clear of this, and have to go back to work. So America went from the ideology of work really hard during the work part of your life, become president or own your own company, sell it, retire, pass it on to your kids, whatever. Think I'm wrong? Go back to farms and ranches. That's the origin story. That's the origin story. Government granted people land and said, we are giving you the ultimate freedom to create your future. Now, no. Government is not granting the future. I mean, sure, immigrants coming in this country, they're treating them really, really well. But the bottom line is, that's because Biden is afraid of them eating cats and dogs, among other things that they could potentially be doing. So the thing here is, just to be fair with this, okay, is that we know that we're in this gray area. We're coming up to the dark ages of Social Security benefits. It was months before the trust funds were going to run out, that the Ginsburg Commission was put together a decision point. The Democrats and Republicans agreed on it because everybody had to give something up except the politicians. And bottom line is, they passed it, 1983. I suspect that this is the same plan that they have for 2033, if not sooner. We will know as we get closer to that date how quickly the money is running out. But let's be fair about this. Let's be very fair about this. A lot of these Americans are taking retirement benefits at 62. A lot of these Americans are becoming retired boomers. So what's happening is, you're having a massive amount of people put a heavy, heavy anchor on this program where it just can't afford to keep up with it. And as a result of that, you're going to see us very quickly see that number that's in reserve for the trust funds be completely depleted, so that all that's left is what the younger groups are paying in at the moment. Now, what happens when that happens? You are also going to have some of those trusts, those special bonds rather, right, that they borrowed against that money coming to term. Now, America is in this downward spiral. Other countries are no longer choosing to purchase its currency to trade with. We are not producing enough items internally, such as manufacturing. We are in this really unique spot. But we know that it's not going to go well. Because when you don't have manufacturing in the country and you think that you can just massively innovate, here's the problem. Brilliant minds innovating new things require manufacturing of those things in order to test the validity of their ideas, prototypes. We don't have that in this country. We sell that stuff off to those who are in China and Africa and different Asian islands and things like that. Mexico, South America to produce the items for us. And then, thinking we have control of that, we try to measure the metrics. And every time we do a run of the production of that product with the machines, we try and make it better. Here's the problem. If we get into a giant war, we're not going to be able to get access to the manufacturing plants and the skilled labor workers who produce those items, which is going to make us the smartest innovators out there that can't make the products that they build inside a CAD program. That's going to be rough because, just to be fair, a lot of Americans are not going to be able to buy the things they want. And then once they ramp up production in the United States, they're going to be very, very expensive. But who is the workforce that will fulfill that requirement? That will be the elderly, the disabled, and the young. It's not going to be those who have established themselves during this time into positions and upgraded and got a promotion and started a company. No, those people are going to be working to own the companies that manufacture things or are already pre-established in industries that will continue forward. But when it comes to manufacturing, it will be the elderly, it will be the youth, it will be some of the immigrants, it will be the disabled who are then forced to take on those jobs because their Social Security benefits do not cover their monthly requirements. Now, as a result of all of that, we know that politicians are afraid to talk about it because they don't have a plan for it, because Social Security benefits are directly tied to monetary solvency. Okay, what is monetary solvency? So the thing is, people who are on Social Security benefits don't think about money the same way that people who have student loans or are currently working and trying to make their dollars make sense, they don't think about it the same way. If you were to think about it the same way, let's take an extreme example. Let's take a VA person, right? A VA person gets a 100% PNT VA check, right? 4,000-ish bucks. Then they get their SSDI check, 2,500 bucks. So they're sitting pretty without taxation on, let's say, 6,500 bucks per month. Okay, $6,500 per month. Okay. Now, just to clarify things so you understand it, I get paid sometimes, not always, because COVID has screwed up a lot of it. Sometimes I just don't get paid for the month. $3,000 and $3,000 bi-monthly. That means that a disabled veteran, okay, and somebody who has an SSDI check, usually if they're getting a higher SSDI around 2,500, will make more than I make. And they do nothing all day and they still make more than I do. Now remember, you're thinking, damn, but it's close. You're thinking, okay, that's like 6-ish, right? But they're getting like, 4 plus, 2 plus 500. That's like 65. That's only $500 difference. No. After taxes, I get around $2,200 from that $3K bi-monthly. So 2,200 and 2,200 is 4,400. So what does that mean? I'm actually getting around 4,400 for working. And then over here, you have basically individuals who are not getting taxed on those benefits. So their brain is not saying, oh, I'm really starving, I'm really scared, Now, you take away the VA benefits, you just go with an SSDI person, $1,500, $2,500, $3,500, whatever. They're in a very different mental state because they don't get enough money. But the veterans, they do. But still, they still share in that mentality of having money come in and not having them tax the shit out of it. And that's important. Because if you're wondering like why all these young people are bitching about their student loans, it's not that we have student loans. It's that they jacked up the price so that they're 3 to 30 times more than it was when people went through previously. They're ridiculous. They made a cash cow out of the academia system and then charged the federal government, which charged us with student loans. And then as a result of that, they make massive amounts of money off of those student loans at the government because they're allowed to take a percentage, just like a bank was, to go ahead and, be a middleman to make more money off the future education of the nation. But remember, we pay those student loans after we already pay a bunch of taxes. Starting to see why the entire, Gen Y, millennials, Gen Z are kind of over with the fuck up created by the boomers. And don't get me wrong, I love the boomers. I love the boomers. I really do. They just, when they sit there and tell me about how brilliant they were, no, you guys screwed up massively our entire manufacturing capacity. You put in politicians who literally destroyed the system you're going to rely on before I will. Again, the problem is Americans just don't think about it. Now, I believe Americans have the capacity, the intelligence, the genetics, the whatever, to have higher thinking across the board. I don't care what culture you come from. I don't care if you come from the street. I don't care if you come from a doctorate level, whatever. I don't care. You have the intelligence to realize what's going on. In fact, what's happening right now is that a lot of people feel very strongly about Harris or Trump as a result of them questioning the status quo of the usual shit that they feed us. So the problem with the Social Security aspect of this is that they're not going to be able to pay the elderly, the disabled, the widowers. They're not going to be able to pay them at the rate that they were before. And those individuals will then need more money. Well, they're going to need a solution for that, a manufactured solution, which will equate to, of course, manufacturing jobs, because we won't be able to use these other nations to control them with our military, because within the next 10 years, these other nations are going to be competitive with their military power. Think I'm wrong? It's only about delivery of hydrogen bombs. That's it. If you have delivery of that and satellites and lots of drones, I mean, you win. That's the main thing. You can destroy. You know, massive destruction. You would need, in order to destroy all those drones set up right into the sky, a ton of satellites. Because, right, think about it. Some specialty super, spy, amazing jet isn't going to do anything against that many drones. It's just not. You can shoot this, you can shoot that. It's just not going to be able to take them all down. You would need massive amounts of satellites with massive amounts of accurate, high-powered lasers. It's just, we're not there yet. China's getting there, but we're not there yet. A lot of you don't know, but China was cut out of a lot of the research integration that we have with the International Space Station and basically particle creation. A lot of you guys don't know that. They were cut out because they were being a bit nefarious in their actions. Well, they've built their own stuff. They're catching up real fast. The only reason we have an advantage right now is because of Elon with his, space dreams. That's it. Literally, China would probably be surpassing the United States at this point, or within the next year or two, but for Elon's massive steps forward. Sure, we rely on things like, Airbus, Lockheed Martin, etc. And as you can see, that's not going so great. Blue Origin hasn't broken a sweat yet with that run that they're doing. So the point with this is America has a problem and it can't afford a solution. And there's no way to afford this ultra expensive program called Social Security benefits. Now, Trump and Harris have said they don't want to tax the elderly on their retirement benefits. I applaud them. But realistically, to be fair, that's not going to fix the problem. That's just doing something to say, you should elect me because I will give you this. Most Americans are not focused on a taxonomy of what will happen if they do certain things. Most Americans are worried about, where's my stimulus check? Is it in the mail? Can I expect it on Friday? That's what Americans want. The more up the ladder of corporate existence, the higher intelligence, the more academia backing them, the more they realize the steps of how they get to a better spot. That's why the gift I would give to Americans, if I could give one gift to all Americans, it would be to increase their intellectual quotient by 30 points. Across the board. Get people in their 70s up to the average 100. Get people at 100 up to 130. I guarantee you America would fix all of its problems within a couple of months. But we can't do that in our current model. And that is a genetic limitation. There's no way around it because I don't have a magic wand from Harry Potter land that will allow me to magically give everybody a 30-point boost in intellectual capacity. It ain't going to happen because there's no magic that does that. Okay? No matter what they sell you in pill form, it ain't going to happen. So my thing is this. If the politicians aren't even willing to talk about it, if, for example, the moderators aren't even willing to bring it up, what are they so afraid of and what are they hiding? So have you ever sat back and done, you do these thought experiments like what Einstein would do, right? Einstein would have this idea and then he would three-dimensionally create it in his brain and then he would move around the object. He would see it from different angles. He would apply different things to it. He would just basically daydream, but it was daydreaming at a very high level. Superman, thank you for the 999 donation. That's awesome. They put a little heart on there. That's very, very cool. Love it. Very awesome. So imagine for a moment, you were not a disabled, retired Social Security beneficiary, but you were a politician. Just imagine that. You're a politician. And the giant government, that which you work for, is failing. It's going bankrupt in a very quick and bad way. You know that in order for it to pay for its bills, it can pull back on certain things. It can pull back on paying other, corporations known as foreign, countries, right? Germany, Spain, France, Poland. You know that we can go ahead and pull back how much money we're paying into unilateral programs, just giving the money, Israel, right? We can pull back from that. We can shrink how much we're spending on other people. You know that as you sit there and you imagine your Einstein theoretical mental experiment, right? You can imagine that that's not going to be enough money. So now we need to figure out another area. Where can we get more money as a country? Okay, so let's think. Okay. Another big area that if you were to reduce it would be to reduce the amount of people on Social Security disability benefits. Because if you did that, you would then have more people relying on essentially other people in their lives, family members, instead of the federal government. And maybe there's some state and county programs that would help them as well. Okay. But if you can reduce significantly the amount of people that are on disability benefits or SSI disability benefits, you can get a chunk of money there too. Now think about it. How are you going to save more money? You are in charge of this giant corporation. You are looking at each division as a category that potentially you want to save money. Now, real quick, you're realizing, you got a problem here. We're spending a lot all over the place. Got a problem here. We don't have enough money. What are we going to do? Then you start to transition your brain over to the idea of how do we make more money? Now, the way that you make money and become an ultimate big bad country is through the petrodollar. Things that are basically, gas, kerosene, diesel, oil, heavy fuel, your classics, okay? The petrodollar. Now, why does this happen? Oh, God, no. Puerto Rican Mike, howdy. Thank you for the $2 donation. I would leave Martin O'Malley in. I'm a huge fan of him. He's been kicking ass. I've got his fanboy t-shirt somewhere in the bag. I'm a big fan of Martin O'Malley, and I've been very critical of a lot of commissioners, but I'm a big fan of him. He's actually doing a really good job. Here's the thing. Then the brain starts to say, okay, I need my oxygen. How am I going to pay for stuff? Well, you notice that Biden in his final year became the ultra Republican. Massive. Go get as much oil as the ground as you can. Biggest exporter of oil that there is. All the anti-green stuff you can do, he's pushing it. Why? Because he ran out of money. We saw him spend more money than Trump did, and Trump had the spending with COVID at its worst time. So, that's where the big expenditures, the first two, were basically spent. So he mass spent, and he cut off his petrodollar and abused the petrodollar, didn't take advantage of the petrodollar. And now he switched and said, you know what? We're going to have to use this petrodollar. We're going to have to make back that money we lost. But now he's realizing, shit, he's in a hole. He's in a hole. He's 35 trillion in debt. Can't print money. Can't borrow money. And there's not enough Americans out there to continue to work, to tax them, to get more out of them. So the farm animals are either sick, they're getting old, they're tired, They don't believe in the system anymore called capitalism, because capitalism with super high student loans is just bullshit. It's just a bullshit game. If you've ever sat there and been like, oh, these kids, and the way they always sell it, and this is why I get pissed off at Ramsey and what he states about it. He's like, I don't want to pay for these kids or getting, gender studies for their $100,000 loan. Cool. Awesome. I get it. But you're also forgetting the massively larger group of doctors, accountants, lawyers, professionals, hard workers, blue collar, some of them, etc. All the administrative people. You're forgetting everybody else. You're taking one little piece and saying, I don't like this group culturally, and saying that we shouldn't fix this massive problem that is making America's youth not give a shit about the capitalist system that made literally America the big bad that everybody feared. And that's the other ironic thing. I don't know how America convinced so many Americans to not want to be feared by other countries. How did we get to that point? If we're not feared by other countries, guess what happens? They take what we have. That's how it works. It's not, this whole like ethical, moral, cutesy bullshit that only exists in the bubble of America. You go to other countries, they just take it. They take what they can. If they can steal something from your docks, they can steal something from your land, they're going to take it. So not being of the mind where America should be feared and respected is a massive detriment to the American people. Because if we are not feared and respected, and some of you will say, oh, we're not respected, but you're damn sure we're feared. Those countries, I don't like them. But they're afraid of us. They won't dare try to harm us. And that's the fear that gives our dollar its worth. Which brings me to my final point with this. Okay, and I think this is the most important part. Constitutions are, unfortunately, useless without actual pressured harm, right? The fear of getting attacked, the fear of being injured, or actual harm. You send an army over and take over an area. Let's say you have two countries, A and B. A is America, B is whatever the hell you want. I don't care. Pick whatever country you want, right? If America is not feared and to some degree respected as a result of it, then what happens is this country over here, B, will force itself to take over America, because that's what it's got to do, because it wants the raw resources. Remember, this whole thing exists because of raw resources like timber, raw resources like coal, raw resources like oil, raw resources like the animals, known as also farms, cows, chickens, humans, the animals that are farmed in these countries. That's all we are. We're farmed. That's all it is. So the point is, right, if that B group, right, that B country says, okay, we want to take what they have because we think we can beat them, then they'll be in that mental state because they have a reason that they feel that they can control, manipulate, take over, etc., whatever we have. And then they take our resources. That's how it works. That's how the British did it. That's how, basically the Middle Easterners did it with the Slavs, right? That whole situation. Africa, right? Taking people, distributing them all over the country and all over the continent there, and this country and that country. It's taking what are essentially the farm animals, chickens, cows, sheep, whatever, including humans, and distributing them. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize with Social Security benefits. Charles Lewis, thank you for the $9.99 donation. I super appreciate it. He said, your videos help many to understand and tackle this process. Thanks, Disabled Vet SSDI recipient. I super appreciate it. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Thank you for the $9.99 donation. Very, very cool. So here's the thing. If you have these two countries, if one country has more people than the other country, and that country can use those people to create more soldiers, administrative people to make money, manufacturing people to make money, then whoever has more trained people, whether they're on the hurt people side, the soldier side, or the make money that the country can use to build itself side, right? The administrative, manufacturing side, whoever has more people wins. Now, in the short run, it sucks that we have so many immigrants that are coming in this country and getting so many benefits, because it is definitely a drain on us. But in the long run, the more people we collect And I understand that there's criminals involved with it and they're incorporated into the woven fabric of it and they're flying people in. I get it. I get it. But the more people we collect, the more families we have, the more farm animals we have to create soldiers, administrative, and manufacturing people. Where's this guitar player? Where's this guitar player? I got to tell you something. I'm getting ready to do a guitar video. I'm really excited about it. My playing is shit, but I'm really excited about it. And that's all you need to be a great player, that and decent gear. But of course, I'm getting ready. So thank you for the $20 donation. I'm like super excited about this guitar video in the future. And it's me literally playing for the first time in 18 years. It's going to be a shit show on ice. You're going to enjoy it. There will be falls, there will be spins, twists. I'll jump up in the air and then fall down. It'll be amazing. You're going to love it. So with that said, right, we have to have soldiers. We have to have production people. In order to do that, we need a lot of people. Now, you'll notice if you go and look at the military people, right, in the different military stages of America, the military people that were in the very beginning, right, the first wars that America did, right, the Civil War, stuff like that, you're going to notice they looked a certain way. But you'll notice now that the military has all kinds of people in it because America has learned to leverage the power of fear and respect through basically taking as many people as they can get, because America learned that instead of people owning people, they would rather have a nation own the work product of those people by selling them the idea that they're free. Because think about it. How free are you really? You get a check, you're in constant fear of losing it. Everybody's taxing you other than your benefit getting taxed when you receive it. Right? You go buy bread, eggs, you got to pay rent. All that shit's taxed. Some way, some form, somebody's getting taxed and they pass it on to you. Princess05, thank you for the 99-cent donation. That's, of course, a member of royalty right there. There's a regal princess. Indeed, indeed. So the thing is this. America, by taking in all these immigrants, here's the problem. Okay. When we take in immigrants, the amount of time it takes for them to culturally get used to how America works is the most important factor for defining how quickly they will become production work product people, right? Where they make stuff. Because at the end of the day, Social Security benefits are all based off of FICA taxes, which is taxing earned income, which is you work, the government owns you as a farm animal, and you give them a chunk of what you make. That's the gig. That's the gig. We all accept that. We're all part of that. There's no magical way around it. That's the gig. Okay. Unless, of course, you move out of the country and then receive benefits to yourself in another country. Then you're just cheating the system. And I applaud you. Good job. You did a good job. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Okay. When you go ahead and have individuals from different cultures coming here who literally eat different things, right? I don't even want to go back to the whole cat dog thing. When they eat different things, or perhaps, one individual of the marriage doesn't work, or that individual has very different understanding as to what functions the different people in the family must do. Or basically, they'll be working under the table for multiple generations because they'll find ways to interweave through the society and fabric of the United States without having to pay anything. But then what comes to save America from these immigrants who are working under the table? The digital dollar, Fed coin. That's going to be how they force large amounts of people, including immigrants, to go ahead and basically pay their fair share of the taxes. That's what will happen. And so as a result of that, pushing forward, going forward, etc., what we've learned is that the government is purely in survival mode. Because at the end of the day, okay, if something has to go ahead and leech off of you, right? Something that's going to leech off of your body. It attaches to you and it leeches on you. What happens to that thing that is leeching on you when you become less productive to its needs? Well, it tries to either eat the thing, totally destroy it, take as much nutrients and move on, or it has to take less from that thing and find a way to survive. This is the problem of our United States government. It is leeching and can't find out what it's going to do. It can't kill its host because it needs its host to keep making stuff, but it needs more hosts that it can leech off of. Again, that returns us to the basic theory of how do we get immigrants? How do we get retired elderly? How do we get disabled? And how do we get younger people working? That's the game. It's all a big farm. They're trying to get more people working on the farm. Now, going back to Trump, going back to Harris, okay? Raymond Yarbrough, thank you for the dollar donation. Very, very cool. Awesome, awesome. Also, Princess05, very, very cool with the dollar donation. That's awesome. Thank you, thank you. Putting a little heart on there. That's awesome. So how do we then connect this to Harris? How do we then connect this to Trump? Trump has no definitive plan for Social Security benefits other than work it by slowly crushing it, by putting a commissioner who will make this thing work more efficiently. And also consider what Republicans are pushing, which is essentially shooting the millennials in the back, and people get less. That's what it comes down to. Democrats on the other side are of the belief that if they tell Americans that they won't change a single thing on this program, which is the same stuff you're getting from Trump, that they're good people because they won't change a single thing, and that they're going to go get the rich to pay for it all and fix it all. Neither, not doing that single thing, right, where they don't act, that omission to act, that not doing something, that is the most terrible thing they could do. The omission to act means that we will de facto fail. So the Democratic plan right now is that we will de facto fail, but we will allow Democrats in office up until that point right before it fails, in which case they'll probably be like, shit, let's put a Republican in, let's make them be hated. They have an idea that they're going to get rich to go ahead and pay over $400,000 FICA taxes, raise the cap. Never going to pass. Never going to pass. Rich people won't allow it because those who are not wealthy enough to have a wealth of education, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of work experience, a wealth of life experience, which is most Americans, to be fair, they know that they can go ahead and not bring up in the most important presidential election, let's call it group chat, between essentially four people that we've ever seen. We know that the Democrats do not want Social Security benefits brought up because if they have to talk about it, it's going to come up that decades have gone by that they promoted the same idea, and the same idea is bullshit and is never going to get passed. They don't want it to come up. Republicans, their plan is just bad news left and right. Everybody gets less. That's the basic thing. If they were honest about the problems of the United States, they could do certain things. Okay. They could make buy-in options where people could buy extra quarters of coverage and it would become legal, not this like half-ass shadowy thing where you have to put a job down on your IRS earnings that wasn't really there. They could go ahead and get immigrants super working and paying into basically the trust funds where if they're on SSI and they want to go ahead and continue to receive SSI, they have to at least work and earn at least 4 quarters worth that go into those trust funds. Maybe more to cover more Americans. But the idea is to get them off of SSI, right? Susan Sells, thank you for the $19.99 donation. I love the little Japanese warrior with the #1 flag. That's awesome. Very, very cool. It doesn't give me the option to give a little heart, but I would. I totally would if I could. So what you have to realize here is that both the Republicans and Democrats somehow, in my opinion, got to the panel because the panel didn't bring up Social Security benefits. That entire time could have been spent going back and forth as to how they're going to pay for this massive group of extremely fragile individuals. But instead, what the Democrats and Republicans have agreed to do is they've agreed to let the program fail so that ultimately it will force a large magnitude of elderly, disabled, and immigrants and youth to have to go and work more hours. Now, I know what you're thinking. It seems weird that a lot of people have to constantly work, right? People have to like do these YouTube channels and Facebook movies and Twitter this and blah, 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 that. And they're making all these TikTok videos and they're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing this and they're doing that. They're trying to find extra income. Why is this? It's for 2 main reasons. Reason number 1 is that people have massive insecurity problems. The working class does, not just the disabled, the retired, etc. The working class does. The working class isn't supposed to. They're supposed to be the egotistical ones with the money, and then some of the retired are, not all of them. So at the end of the day, the problem is there's an ego problem. People feel less than as a result. And as a result of that, they're trying to find new ways to make money. And their current job isn't paying enough to keep up with the price hikes that they're facing. So they're in shit shape. They're not happy. It's not a good situation. But imagine if you're a politician. Imagine if you know you don't have a fix. Imagine if you already knew that the whole thing had to fail to some degree. Your then thought pattern would not be, how do I save it? It would be how to manufacture an outcome that raises the most money for the company known as the United States of America. That's what's happening. That's where this whole thing is going. Now, I understand that some of these ideas, and I try to make them as simple as possible. I try to lay it out as simple and straightforward as possible. I don't always do that. Sometimes they're difficult ideas. But here's the final thought I want to leave you with before we go to the next video. How do you go ahead and get the elderly to work more? You make their benefits not worth that much because the items become vastly more expensive, and you change the math for the cost of living adjustment so that they get a reduced amount every single year and never catch up. Cool. They got that covered. They've already done that. How do you get fewer disabled people found disabled, therefore not getting to take a check against the SSDI trust fund or SSI benefits? Well, you just get judges that have less of an interest in approving people under 50. Because you bin them based off of grid out potentials. Because if you bin them and approve people that are older, you have to pay them less over the length of their life, which is why most disability attorneys aren't touching anybody that's under 50. So you got that. And then you also have the reality that disability benefits aren't shit anymore. They don't pay for enough, right? Show me a person on disability benefits that thinks it's fair for the amount that they're receiving. Not the disabled part, but the amount of benefits that they're receiving is actually fair. Show me anyone that believes that. It doesn't exist. So the point I'm getting at with this is that we don't have, and this is what you have to understand. I like Trump from some stuff. I think Harris has some good options here that she can really capitalize on. You have to understand, we all sat there thinking, when are they going to talk about the check that I get each month that I survive on? None of them. None of them. And my point to you is this. If none of them are going to fix that, then we're going to have to change politicians at some point. Because if we don't change politicians, I can almost guarantee you we're just going to be stuck in the same spot we were before. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. We're going to be in a very, very bad position. Real quick, worstest guitar player ever. Walter, you always do that. I super appreciate it. Thank you. The mega donation there, $40 donation, which is absolutely huge. Which, if you're cool with that, I'm probably going to spend on some guitar-oriented thing for that video, because I am, when it comes to that video, by the way, where I'm going to play guitar, I am massively, massively lacking in ego. I am so afraid to do it. I'm so afraid to get it. I mean, it's going to be pre-recorded, and I'll probably have to take 15,000 takes. But let me tell you, I am very nervous about it. Nikki Hanley, thank you for the 99-cent donation. That's awesome. All right. So the question that most people will ask, that final thought on this, and then we're going to go to the next video. The question I think is very important here is, what happens after 2033? Well, we all know everybody gets less and everybody's pissed off and just sucks, right? Things are expensive. There's not much monthly benefit. Everybody's got to go and work, right? All hands on deck, which is going to force a lot of the disabled off of disability benefits because they just won't be able to survive with those rules that restrict them. So what happens then? Once you have every potential category of individuals working, you have created a serf system of peasants. And this serf system of peasants will basically fall into two categories. Those with multiple investments that can continue to grow, right? Side hustles that grew into something that makes real money. And those who don't have those. The problem that I see with America is that we are moving away from giving people freedom with their life to choose the direction they should be going. Let me give you an example. We don't have enough babies being made. We don't. I'm a problem. I don't have kids other than my 2 furry babies. My furry babies are adorable. But I don't have any kids, human kids. It's because I don't have a girlfriend, because I don't have time for it, because I'm constantly working, because I am constantly trying to pay off student loans and have a mortgage and this and that and stuff like that. I don't have time for that. Who has time for love when you got to pay off the government? You know, government's a very greedy monkey. You got to feed that monkey. So the point is, what do when there's not enough kids? Well, you normally change the work week, right? You make it so that either they're making more so that they feel secure, or you make it so that it's harder for them to be fired so that they better understand what they have to get done and they do it. Or you give them a 3-day weekend that increases the likelihood of them getting together, doing events, and, you know, basically making families. None of that's going to happen. America is a train leading to literally the edge of a cliff, because at the end of the day, if we don't have people having kids, fertility rate kills Social Security benefits. If we don't have a cost of living adjustment properly giving people enough money, then they're going to have to start working. And all of a sudden now the entire idea of freedom dies. And then nobody has any purpose at all with actually going forward and continuing in this capitalism system. So what happens? People move out of this country. They sell whatever assets they have. They sell whatever properties they have, stocks, bonds. They sell all that shit and they move somewhere else. I believe we will be seeing the largest mass exodus out of the United States we've ever seen. And here's why. Here's the thing that's going to matter. You can just see the United States, right? Nice little map of the United States. And the disabled are going to be forced, and the retired are going to be forced to go and move from cheaper state to cheaper state until they end up in Mississippi and Louisiana. Backwater as backwater can get, okay? Once that doesn't work, once that's it, once they don't have enough money to live there, then they only have one option: move out of the United States. That's it. That's it. That's all that happens at that point. So I see in the future, after we go through the dark period of Social Security benefits actually getting reduced, people getting less, having to retire later, everybody having to go and work, what happens then is a mass exodus. And that's sad, because we significantly rely on the disabled and retired to be paid the money that they paid into the system to begin with, to then respend it on the economy by buying basic resources to be able to survive. It is literally that simple. You get a lot of Americans moving out of, the United States, then the government doesn't get all that food money that they're buying, all that rent money that they're paying, all those taxes that some corporation or landlord is receiving, gone. That's all going to somebody in South America, in the East Asian islands, okay? The cheapest parts of Europe. That's where all that money is going. And that's a lot, because that's 70 million people. You ever think about that? Like, if you just do quick math, I mean, you can look up the full amount of how much is spent, although it's a moving target and it changes literally every second. But if you pull up a calculator, right, and let's say that we did a general calculation of, combination between the SSDI, SSIs, and any Title II stuff, right? Let's just do a magical averaging number of $1,500. It's higher, lower, whatever. We know it is. Times, let's say 70 million. Technically, it's over 70 million total, but here we go. So let's see. That's then we need 3 more zeros. So let's see. We got 3, and there's 70. Okay, so that would equate to. Okay, so now we're into hundred thousands, millions, billions. So $105 billion of $1,500 times 70 million people. Now let's say that you take half of that divided by 2. And half of that is now spent outside of the country. So now you're looking at, outside of the country, $52,500,000. That is not going to the United States in some form of taxes, some form of economy boosting. What happens to America then? America loses its international presence, its capacity to massively afford a mega military, its capacity to innovate new technologies for the military. Ergo, it loses its big bad status. Now, which countries are going to beat it? I'll tell you which countries are going to beat it. The ones that are the closest and fastest to making their farm animals constantly work the most and produce the most work product. Now, which group do you think is doing really well at that? Right? Which group do you think is doing really well at that? Well, that would be China, because they basically have an entire point system that will restrict your movement, transportation, the zip codes you can live in, the schools you can go to, based upon you not working constantly in those factories, corporations, or basically administrative facilities. That's the reality of it. That's the reality of it. Puerto Rican Mike says, I'm moving to Venezuela. An interesting choice. Interesting choice. There's a lot going on right now over in that area. May I suggest Panama? So, anyways, I'll catch you all at the next video. The next video is going to be about a lot of interesting things. I see Raymond Yarborough also did a donation. I have no hands, legally blind now. I must find work. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, and we didn't even talk about it. And Raymond makes an amazing point. What do you do with individuals that don't have hands, or are blind, or don't have feet, or an entire leg missing half the hip? What do you do? Well, in the not too distant future, because we already have chips that have been implanted into the brain, to now with microchips in a prosthetic, potentially you could use the brain with a chip in it to manipulate prosthetic hands to do functional aspects and give eyesight back to a person. We're not that far away from that. You see all those people getting those amazing ear surgeries and, these amazing things where all of a sudden they can hear for the first time, they can see for the first time. We're not that far away from that world. We're just not. But are you going to go ahead and let them put a chip in your head? That's the question. Carolyn Food Forest, $20 donation. You deserve to join a singles group and find love. Do it for yourself and your country. Find a wife and have some children. I would love to. I've tried the programs. I've tried all kinds of different ones. I tried the political ones. And the interesting thing is that on the left side, the women are just culturally not a good mesh for me. On the right side, they're all 50 years old and older. I've tried all the classics. And the thing is this, I'm gonna tell you a secret. Women have become like men. They're very picky about body or face or this or that, or a certain look or this or that. And the thing is, at the end of the day, the issue is, I have been on a bunch of dates, and I will tell you this, and this is a very important thing. I think it's very, very telling. On going on all these dates, I've realized that many of the women, like that would, normally get with guys that I'm sitting across from, there's a guy sitting at the bar I think they would be great for. I just don't think they would be great for me. And I think that I'm such a weird, unusual human being that it's going to take some weird jigsaw puzzle piece, to fit my existence, because I don't work with the average, it doesn't work. So I don't know what the solution is. I've been thinking about it. I've gone through the classic things. I'm not going to hire a dating coach, because that's all bullshit. They just literally do the same thing. It's just you have a third party person picking from a map of a bunch of people. It's, but I agree. Food Forest, I'm all for that. But my next big goal, just to be fair, ironic with your title there, is I want to actually eat healthy food. I'm getting completely away from fast food and discovering food. And a lot of that, and I'll tell you one side story, and then we're going to end this video, because it's important for us to get to the next video. Because the next video is specifically about a topic that I feel really strongly about. So the bottom line is this, I've kind of come to the conclusion. So there was a person who I got along with really well. And just a quick side story. She basically showed me a lot of cooking and how to use this machine and that machine and this machine and that machine to make all these different foods. And, to be fair, I'm a guy. I took her knowledge and I just basically put it into the guy food mechanics, right? How do I make chicken that's crumbly? How do I make steak inside? How do I do this? I made guy foods, right? How do I put more bacon on it? I just want to just cover, if I can interweave the bacon around the carcass, you know what I mean? I can make this happen. So I did the guy thing, right? And as a result of that particular thing, I didn't really pay attention to the things that she was doing when it comes to, vegetables. I wasn't connecting. But she was somebody who actually got me to look at vegan food and try it out. I realized it was not this horrible, horrible thing. I mean, if you guys ever have vegan food, you're going to realize at the end of the day, if you have stomach issues, gastrointestinal issues, Barrett's esophagus, whatever, vegan food, you don't have all that digestive weird stuff. You don't have it. You know what I mean? Granted, I'm not the great expert on the topic of this. I will literally make a burger so obnoxious that I'll call it the dually burger. But the point is with this, at the end of the day, I'm starting to realize, like, I'm getting older and, I want this thing, the chassis that I have, to last a little longer. And it's not going in the right direction of that. It's definitely not going in the right direction of that. Now, with that said, the next video that I am really, really excited about that we're going to be doing is basically about brain chips and actually gathering HIPAA and high-tech related data from it for the purposes of Social Security benefits and how they would do that. So I'm going to walk you through the process of how the SSA, if you were to go ahead and get a higher level medical device implanted into you, how they would use that data specifically for depression to go ahead and use it in their adjudication as to the severity of your impairment. I think it's crucial we talk about it. I think it's on the forefront of things that we should be talking about. Kirk Garrettson, $1.88 donation. I super appreciate that. But bottom line is this. I will catch you guys in the next video. And we will go ahead and go through basically that. Give me about 10 minutes to get set up and just relax for a minute, grab a drink, and we will go from there. And if I show up with a panini, you will understand. I will see you all a little bit later. Please remember to like. Please remember to subscribe. If I pissed you off during this video, good. I hope your mind is thinking about different things and being open to stuff. And if not, being really closed about something until you get so tight on it that you decide to open up a little bit of light and let something shine in. I hope. Head over to Google if you can. Click Disability Resolution on there. Disability Resolution Law Firm, Disability Resolution Florida. Throw some stars up there. Also, remember, Mondays and Thursdays, I go live. I do a very dumb thing. I let people call me live on the phone and just answer their questions on the spot. I don't know of any other attorney that does that. It's insanity. I've been doing it for years now. So why stop? Also, if you want a private session where you talk to me, you can get one of those little contract thingies below where you get a full hour. We'll put you on the hearing calendar. A lot of people use them. They like them. And they ask me the most difficult questions I've ever had. Really the most difficult questions I've ever had. Anyways, I will catch you a little bit later. I will see you in about 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.